They don't want you to see this. Not because it hurts them physically, but because it breaks their control. Because once a man learns the truth, he stops begging, he stops chasing, he stops giving his power away just to be loved. This isn't about hating women. It's about remembering who you are. A man who forgot his strength. A man who gave up his peace to please people. But today, you remember. 1. What real Stoicism means, not what they told you. Stoicism has been misunderstood. People think it means being cold, emotionless, distant like a man made of stone. They say it turns you into someone who doesn't feel anything, someone detached from life. But that's not what Stoicism really is. Stoicism is not about shutting down. It's about waking up. It's not about becoming numb to pain. It's about learning how to stand tall inside of it. It's not about pretending nothing matters. It's about knowing what actually does. Real Stoicism is strength in stillness. It's the ability to remain grounded when everything around you is shaking. It's staying calm when she's upset. It's staying clear when the world throws chaos at you. It's staying focused when life tests your emotions, your pride, and your heart. You don't need to yell. You don't need to chase. You don't need to perform to be seen. A Stoic man knows who he is, and that's why his silence speaks louder than noise. And no, Stoicism doesn't mean you hate women. It doesn't mean you walk around bitter or cold. It means you don't need women to complete you, because you've already done the work to complete yourself. There's a difference between loving someone and needing them to feel okay. One is strength, the other is survival. Stoicism teaches you the first. The great Stoics Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they weren't empty men. They were full of wisdom. They weren't passive. They were powerful because they mastered the hardest battlefield of all, their own minds. They didn't wait for applause. They didn't build their identity on followers, flattery, or affection. They found their peace not in the world, but in themselves. That's why a real man doesn't chase peace. He becomes peace. Not because his life is easy, but because his mindset is strong. And here's the truth most won't say. Women can feel that. They may not be able to explain it, but they sense when a man doesn't need them. Not in a dismissive way, but in a way that says, I'm already whole. You're welcome in my life, but you're not my life. That energy is rare. It's powerful. And it's what draws people in without effort. Because a Stoic man doesn't ask the world to slow down. He simply moves through it with clarity, discipline, and presence. And when she sees that, when she feels that, she knows this man can't be shaken. Not by her moods, not by his desires, not by the ups and downs of life. Because this man isn't chasing anything outside of himself. He carries everything he needs within. 2. The trap most men fall into. Most men are trained from a young age to believe a lie. A quiet, dangerous lie that shapes how they show up in relationships. It sounds like this. If I'm nice enough, she'll stay. If I do everything she asks, she'll love me. If I give more, listen more, bend more, maybe she'll finally choose me. And so they become people pleasers, not because they're weak men, but because they've been told that sacrifice equals love. They're taught that to be a good man, you must never upset her, never say no, never take up space. But here's the truth. Love that's earned through pleasing, shrinking, and surrendering your boundaries isn't love. It's quiet manipulation. It's survival disguised as romance. Because the moment you start saying yes to keep her around, you start saying no to yourself. You ignore your instincts. You silence your values. You swallow your voice just to avoid upsetting her. And little by little, you disappear. Not physically, But emotionally, spiritually, mentally, you lose your sense of self, and in return, you don't get love. You get tolerated. Let me ask you a hard question. When was the last time you said no and didn't feel guilty? When was the last time you held a boundary and stuck to it? When was the last time you disappointed someone and still respected yourself after? If you can't remember, then ask yourself this: are you really in love? Or are you just addicted to being needed? There's a big difference. Love is a choice. Need is a chain. And when that need controls your behavior, when her happiness decides your self-worth, you're no longer a man. You're a puppet. And she can feel it. She may not say it out loud, but deep down, she knows when a man is operating from fear. Fear of loss. Fear of rejection. Fear of being alone. And guess what? Fear is not attractive. It doesn't invite love. It invites control. Because once she realizes you'll do anything to keep her, the power dynamic shifts. Not because she's evil, but because you handed her the leash. And the leash isn't always made of words. Sometimes it's made of silence, of over-apologizing, of abandoning your standards, of accepting things that go against your soul just to keep the peace. But peace built on self-betrayal is not peace. It's quiet torment. So what do? You break the leash. You stop needing her to validate you. You stop proving your worth. You stop chasing love that feels like work. You take back your focus. You return to your mission. You remember who you were before you needed to be accepted. And the moment you do that, the game ends. Because she can no longer control what she doesn't own. And you are no longer trapped in a loop of trying to be good enough. You are already enough. But only when you start acting like it. Stand your ground. Hold your line. Be kind, but never soft in your spine. Because the man who knows how to say no with calm confidence, that's the man she respects. That's the man she remembers. That's the man who leads not through fear, but through quiet, unshakable power. 3. Women say one thing, but respect another. She may say she wants you to open up, to be vulnerable, to be more emotionally available. She might tell you she wishes you'd talk more about your feelings, to cry when you're hurting, to stop bottling it all up. And in that moment, she probably means it. She's not lying. She's expressing a desire for closeness, to understand the parts of you that most men keep hidden. But here's the hard truth that few men ever hear. What she says she wants and what she actually respects are often two different things. Because while your words can touch her mind, your energy, your emotional presence is what speaks to her heart. You think that spilling every emotion will bring you closer, that if she sees your wounds, your pain, your rawness, she'll love you deeper, protect you more, stay loyal longer. But attraction doesn't work that way. Not for her. Not deep down. You can be vulnerable. But when that vulnerability turns into emotional neediness, when your opening up becomes emotional dependence, she feels it, even if she can't explain it. Even if she still hugs you and says, "It's okay," something underneath starts to shift. She may still offer comfort. She may listen. She may even cry with you. But the part of her that longs for strength, that craves direction, that needs a man to lean on when the world gets heavy, that part of her starts to pull back. Not because she's cruel, not because she doesn't care, but because now she feels something different in you. Not grounded presence, but emotional instability. And whether she says it or not, she starts to question, if he's breaking down like this, who's going to catch me when I fall? Because in her life, emotions are already everywhere. They rise and fall like waves. They come without warning. Some days she feels overwhelmed by her own moods, and what she secretly longs for is an anchor, not a wall, not a robot, but a man who can feel and still stand tall. A man who can sit in the storm without becoming the storm, who can listen to her pain without needing to match it, who can speak with clarity, not cry for rescue. She wants to know, can you be the calm when she's falling apart? Can you hold space for her fear without letting your own swallow you? Can you love her without needing her to fix you every time you struggle? Because here's the truth most men never hear. A woman can't truly love a man she doesn't respect, and she can't respect a man who needs her to carry him emotionally. You think your softness will win her over, but softness without direction feels heavy, and no woman wants to carry a man's emotional weight like a child. You're not weak for having emotions. You're human. But when your emotions take the driver's seat, when your tears come from helplessness, when your vulnerability is used to get love instead of express love, you stop being her rock and start being her responsibility. And love doesn't grow from guilt. It dies there. So yes, be human. Yes, let her see your truth. But share from a place of strength, not need. Speak your heart when you're calm, not when you're desperate. Feel pain, but don't hand it to her like she's your therapist. Cry if you must, but not in a way that makes her feel like she has to put herself back together and hold you up too. Be the kind of man who can say, I'm struggling right now, but I'm handling it. Not the kind who says, I'm struggling, please save me, because one earns her respect, the other erodes it, and respect is the foundation of true love. So, no, you don't have to be cold, you don't have to be fake, but you do have to be solid. Stay rooted, stay calm, stay in control of your emotional world. Not because you're trying to impress her, but because you owe it to yourself to be whole, steady, and strong. Because whether she says it out loud or not, deep down, she's hoping you won't make her the emotional anchor in your life. She wants to lean on you, not carry you. And the man who understands that is the man she'll follow with trust, love, and loyalty she can't fake. 4. You can't control her, but you can control yourself. You can't control how she wakes up feeling. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. You can't control whether she greets you with warmth or distance, whether her eyes light up when she sees you, or whether she barely looks up from her phone. One day she may be affectionate, loving, and close. The next day distant, silent, 1,000 miles away, and she won't even be able to explain why. That's not your failure. That's human nature. People change. Feelings shift. Even those who once swore they'd stay forever can drift without warning. And no matter how much you love her, no matter how loyal, patient, or generous you are, you cannot force her to stay. You cannot make her love you harder, just because you're loving her with everything you've got. You can't logic your way into her heart. You can't argue her back into consistency, and you definitely can't save something that's already slipping. If the other person is letting go, and the more you try to control it, the more you beg, explain, overthink, or try to adjust every part of yourself just to get it right, the more you bleed, quietly, slowly, from the inside. You start losing your sense of identity. You start bending your values. You start walking on eggshells, hoping to not scare her away. But love that requires you to abandon yourself is not love, it's slow self-destruction. So stop trying to control her, because here's the truth. You can't stop the wind, but you can learn how to sail. You can't stop someone from walking away, but you can choose how you stand when they do. Instead of asking, why is she acting like this? Ask, why does her behavior shake me so deeply? Why does her silence make me question my worth? Why does her withdrawal make me panic? Why does her approval feel like air I can't live without? Because that is the real problem. Not her inconsistency, but the way it owns you. You can't control her, but you can control your energy. You can control whether you spiral or stay still, whether you beg or breathe, whether you shrink or stand tall. You can choose not to overreact. You can choose to say less, but mean more. You can choose to walk away, not to punish her, but to protect your own peace. That's real masculinity. Not the loud kind that pounds its chest, but the quiet kind that doesn't break. She is not your enemy. She's not a villain designed to test your emotions. She's just a human being, emotional, changing, like the seasons, like the weather. But the mistake most men make is turning her into their entire world, turning her love into their life purpose, making her attention the definition of success, and her approval the definition of manhood. But when you do that, you've already lost. Not because she's wrong, but because you gave away a power she was never supposed to hold. When her moods control your moods, when her silence becomes your spiral, when her choices determine your identity, you're no longer living for truth. You're reacting to fear. That's not love. That's emotional slavery. That's not connection. That's addiction. So stop. Not for her. For you, detach. Detach from the need to be picked. Detach from the idea that her attention defines your value. Detach from chasing love as if it's your lifeline. Because it's not. You were breathing long before she noticed you. You were a whole man before she ever texted you, "Good morning." And if she leaves, you are still that man. You don't need her presence to feel powerful. You don't need her approval to feel grounded. What you need is your own respect, your own clarity, your own discipline. That's when something changes. You stop waiting for her to calm your fears, because you've already made peace with yourself. You stop tying your emotions to hers, because your foundation is now deeper than her storms. That's when you become a man, not in age, but in energy. A man who doesn't beg to be heard. A man who doesn't panic when someone walks away. A man who knows how to hold his own. That kind of man is rare. But that kind of man lives inside you. He's just been buried beneath fear, attachment, and overthinking. And the moment you stop trying to control what's outside of you and start mastering what's within, you don't just survive the chaos. You become the calm inside it. The storm doesn't end, but it stops owning you. And that's when everything changes. 5. Be the man she can't shake. If she leaves, let her go. If she stops calling, if she pulls away, if she withdraws her warmth, don't panic, don't chase, don't make her absence more powerful than your presence. You were not built to beg. You were not created to be a man who loses himself just to hold on to someone else. You are not here to audition for love, like your worth is on trial. You were born with purpose, born with strength, born to lead with your heart, yes, but never at the cost of your backbone. And the more you remember that, the less you'll try to convince someone to stay who doesn't see the value of standing beside you. When a woman becomes distant, most men start to crumble. They become anxious. They start overthinking, replaying every word, every moment, wondering what they did wrong. Then they try harder. They become sweeter, more available. They overextend, they over-apologize. They start giving more than was ever asked, hoping it'll bring her back. But here's the truth. That energy, that desperation doesn't pull her closer. It pushes her further away. Not because kindness is wrong, not because caring is weakness, but because when you give from fear, it repels. Fear smells like insecurity. It sounds like panic. It feels like emotional pressure. And no one man or woman feels attracted to pressure. When you try to prove your worth, when you explain why you're a good guy, when you start adjusting everything about yourself to be more lovable, you've already handed away your crown, and she can feel it. She may not say it directly, but deep in her intuition, something shifts. She senses you're no longer standing. You're reaching. You're chasing. And the moment a man stops leading himself, he becomes someone she doesn't feel safe around. Because real safety, the kind that women crave on a soul level, doesn't come from flowers or flattery or effort alone. It comes from presence. It comes from stillness. It comes from the kind of man who can stay calm even when the emotional waters rise. You don't have to yell. You don't have to chase. You don't have to argue your way back into her life. You just have to remain solid, unmoved, clear, grounded. Because when a man doesn't react to every emotional shift, when he's not thrown off just because she is, he becomes something rare. He becomes something valuable. This doesn't mean you become cold. It doesn't mean you pretend not to care. It means you don't lose yourself while caring. You don't collapse while loving. It means you care without clinging. That's strength. The man who stays rooted in his truth, even when she tests him, even when she pulls back to see if he'll break, that man earns a deeper kind of respect. Because while many men will bend, fold, and chase, the rare one will remain still, not to punish her, not to manipulate, but because his love for her never outweighs the respect he holds for himself. When you stop trying to win her and start focusing on becoming the man you're proud of, everything changes. She may test your silence. She may try to see if you'll come running. She may try to trigger you. But when you don't flinch, when you remain focused on your path, something clicks inside her. She doesn't see weakness. She sees strength. She doesn't feel control. She feels trust. She begins to respect the fact that you are the kind of man who doesn't need to be chosen to feel valuable, because you've already chosen yourself. And that is powerful. A man who stands for himself, without apology, without panic, without neediness. That man is magnetic. So stop trying to be enough for her. Start being enough for you. Be still. Be calm. Be firm in your values, gentle in your words, and powerful in your stillness. Let her come back if she chooses. Let her walk away if she must. Either way, you stay grounded. Your peace is not up for trade. Your dignity is not up for discussion. Your worth is not something she decides. Be the man she can't shake. Not because you shut down, but because you've done the inner work. Because your identity no longer rises and falls with someone else's affection. That kind of man is rare. That kind of man doesn't just attract women. He commands respect from everyone. He doesn't lead with ego. He doesn't lead with fear. He leads with presence. He leads without chasing. Because in a world full of men who fold at the first sign of distance, you will be the man who stands. 6. Final truth. They want you confused, not calm. They don't want you calm. Not really. They don't want you steady, clear, and composed. Because a calm man can't be pushed. A calm man can't be manipulated. A calm man doesn't chase, he chooses. The moment you become calm, you stop reacting to every emotional shift like it's a crisis. You stop panicking when someone pulls away. You stop needing to prove yourself just to feel worthy. You stop falling into the same emotional traps again and again. The games, the guilt trips, the mixed signals. You begin to see things for what they are, not what you hope they could be. A man who is calm is dangerous, not because he's aggressive, not because he's cold, but because he is unshakable. He doesn't flinch when disrespected. He doesn't plead when love is withdrawn. He doesn't perform for acceptance. He doesn't shrink just to be liked. They want you confused instead. They want you asking, "Did I say something wrong? Why is she acting different today? What more can I give so she doesn't leave?" They want you second-guessing your every word. They want you thinking love is something you earn through emotional obedience. Because as long as you're confused, you're easy to control. You become soft clay in someone else's hands, and you stop thinking like a man. You start thinking like a boy afraid of being left behind. That's how men lose themselves. Not all at once, but in 1,000 tiny moments. Every time you apologize just to keep the peace, every time you ignore your gut to avoid upsetting her, every time you abandon your own needs to meet hers, it feels noble, but it's not strength. It's slow surrender. You begin to trade your clarity for her comfort, your mission for her mood, your direction for her attention, and all the while you forget who you are. But here's the thing, you have a choice. You can stay in the cycle, keep trying harder, giving more, becoming less. Or you can wake up. You can choose calm over confusion. You can choose clarity over chaos. You can choose you. Not in a selfish way, but in a way that finally honors your worth. You don't need her to tell you that you're enough. You don't need her to stay in order to feel like a man. You don't need her to approve of your mission for it to matter. Because when you're clear on who you are, the right people will want to walk beside you. And the ones who don't, they'll drift, and you won't chase. This isn't about becoming cold or emotionally detached. It's not about hating women or blaming them. That's just more noise. That's just more reaction. This is about rising above the game, seeing it for what it is, a loop designed to keep you insecure, needy, unsure. But the man who breaks that loop, the man who chooses stillness over panic, discipline over distraction, and purpose over performance, he becomes free. Free from needing to be chosen. Free from bending to every opinion. Free from chasing feelings that come and go like the weather. He doesn't need a crowd to feel confident. He doesn't need attention to feel seen. He doesn't need approval to move forward, because he has something deeper, a quiet power inside him, a peace that can't be shaken. He doesn't hate women. He respects them. He understands them. But he doesn't revolve around them. Because the moment he stops orbiting around her, he starts becoming his own sun, his own gravity, his own force. And that's when something incredible happens. He stops trying to impress, and people are still drawn to him. Not for what he says, not for what he gives, but for what he is. Grounded, whole, unmoved. He becomes the man who doesn't need to chase. The man who doesn't need to explain. The man who doesn't fold when love walks away. Because the love he gives himself is already strong. That man is rare. That man is respected. That man is remembered. So if you're tired of the guessing games, tired of the silence that feels like punishment, tired of tying your worth to how close or far she stands, step out. Step out of the confusion. Step out of the emotional loops. Step into your stillness. Not because you've stopped caring, but because you've finally started caring about the one person you've ignored for too long. You. Choose peace. Choose clarity. Choose discipline. Choose presence. Because once you do, once you build that quiet, steady power inside you, no woman, no storm, no rejection, no silence can ever shake the man you've become. If you're still here, still listening, still breathing through every word, then you've already done something most men won't. Most men click away when it gets uncomfortable. They tap out when the truth starts cutting too deep. They scroll past when something speaks directly to their soul, because it's easier to distract themselves than to face what they've become. Most men hide behind pride. They laugh it off. They say, "I don't need this." They pretend they're fine, even while they're breaking inside. But you stayed. You listened. You absorbed. And even if your heart is heavy, even if you feel exposed, you didn't run. That means something. It means you're done with surface-level living. Done pretending that validation, attention, and temporary affection are enough. Done playing the role of the nice guy who bends over backwards and ends up resentful, empty, and forgotten. Because let's be honest, you're exhausted. Exhausted from performing. From always trying to be what someone else needs. From constantly proving, chasing, adjusting, compromising, just to be told it's still not enough. You've carried that weight for too long. The weight of wanting to be liked, the weight of needing to be accepted, the weight of feeling like love must be earned through struggle. But now, something's shifting. Something inside you is waking up. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. But it's powerful. It's the voice you buried under all the noise. The part of you that remembers who you were before you started chasing approval. Or maybe you're meeting him for the first time. You're no longer chasing someone's love. You're chasing your own peace. You're no longer waiting to be chosen. You're choosing yourself. And that decision, that quiet, unshakable decision, changes everything. Because a man who can sit in stillness while the world tries to shake him, that man commands respect. Not through fear, not through force, but through presence. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't explain himself to win hearts. He doesn't panic when someone walks away. His calm speaks louder than noise. His boundaries speak louder than begging. His focus speaks louder than feelings. You don't need to prove anything anymore. Not to her. Not to society. Not even to the wounded voice in your head that whispers, "You're not enough." You are enough. You've always been. But now you finally believe it. So let this be the moment. Not just a video you watched, but a line in the sand. The moment you stop begging to be heard. The moment you stop reaching for people who never reach back. The moment you stop sacrificing yourself in the name of love. This is the death of the boy who needed to be liked. And the birth of the man who leads himself. This is the rise of your standards. The return of your power. The beginning of your quiet, disciplined transformation. Comment below right now. I choose self-mastery over chasing love. Write it not for me, not for views, but for you. So you see your decision in writing. So your words match your energy. So you commit publicly and privately to the life you deserve. Let the ones who used to toy with your emotions wonder what changed. Let the old version of you watch in silence as you evolve. Let the world see the man who no longer plays games, because he's too focused on building something real. You're not here to be liked. You're here to lead. You're not here to prove. You're here to become. And if you're ready to rise with discipline, ready to live with clarity, ready to be the kind of man who no longer fears losing what's not meant to stay, then subscribe. Not because I told you to, but because you're ready. This is not about women. This is not about dating. This is not even about heartbreak. This is about you. The man you were meant to be before the world convinced you to shrink. Before life taught you to chase love instead of create peace. Before you forgot how powerful it is to simply stand still and know your worth. This isn't a new beginning. This is a return to the man who no longer explains himself, who no longer waits for permission, who no longer bends to be accepted. And now that man walks again, with calm in his chest, with fire in his mission, with stillness in his soul, and nothing to prove, because his presence says it all.